Do you have 3 hours?
Yes.
Okay. They want more. I haven't shared anything yet. Okay. We're going to be concentrated and short and brief, but a lot. I do want to ask, however, because I'll get very antsy if I see the clock ticking towards 1, I might need till 1:15. So if you'll sit a few extra minutes, I don't think I'll bore you today, but please forgive if I go a little over time. And my shiurim, the reason is all the classes I usually give are usually an hour and 20 minutes. So I'm kind of programmed in that time frame to develop an idea and to build on it. So the hour is a tzimtzum, a concentration. Okay, a contraction. Another thing I would like to say before today's class. Today's class, I realize there's always new people. I do want to say that today's class really would be greatly, greatly enhanced if you heard yesterday's class. You could understand this class on its own. I would recommend, it has been recorded, if you can listen to yesterday's class, even after today's class, so that you'll appreciate, hopefully, a little better what I am saying today. And really, it's all a build-up of everything we've been talking about in the Yarchei Kallah. Primarily, even if you don't get to hear all the main classes, the classes that were given over here as the main lecture, but if you can get a chance to listen to class number 2, 4, 5, and 6. Those are the classes that are related mostly to Mashiach. So those, if you can catch up on that, that'd be great. I hope I'll have access to those shiurim as well. Thank you. So if you heard what I said yesterday, I said some pretty crazy stuff. And really crazy. If you think I didn't say anything crazy, then you probably didn't hear what I said yesterday. So let me just put it in stark language. I basically said yesterday that Mashiach came already. Bias Mashiach happened. And everybody that's complaining, where is Mashiach? It happened already. We're already after Bias HaMashiach. What didn't happen is the Geula didn't happen, but Bias HaMashiach happened already. And that's a very, very, very serious problem. Because if Bias HaMashiach happened already 30 years ago and the Geula didn't happen, we got to scratch our heads and figure out what is wrong. This is a big problem. Now, this whole idea is very wild. Bias HaMashiach happened already. So let me just give you there's a lot of Torah sources to prove this concept and idea that something like this is possible, not only possible, but probable. I'll share with you a teaching from the Sfas Emes, not Ala Torah. Sfas Emes, fantastic teachings Ala Torah, but Sfas Emes Ala Shas. Sfas Emes was the second Gerer Rebbe sometime in the 1800s, one of the foremost geniuses in Torah authorities. Sfas Emes Mesechtes Rosh Hashanah, Daf Yud Aleph, Amid Beis. He brings over here the Pshitahu, it is simple. This is the first piece on Amid Beis, and the second that he's commenting on the 11th page, the second side, Amid Beis. He says like this: the Pshitahu, it is simple. The Be'emes, in truth, Ben David Lechud, the coming of Ben David, which means the coming of Mashiach, the arrival of Mashiach, is an independent entity, Ugeula Lechud, and redemption is a separate thing. Two separate things. Shaharei, he proves it. Moshe Rabbeinu Olav Hashalom, Moshe Rabbeinu Olav Hashalom, Bala Mitzrayim Koydem HaGeula. Moshe Rabbeinu arrived to Egypt before the redemption. Ukemoi Kain, and then the redemption only happened a few months later. Actually, it got much worse after Moshe came, to the point that Moshe asked the Eibishter, blamed God, and said, what are you doing? Why'd you send me? Things didn't get better. And the Eibishter said, Atasira. Kamoi Kain, so too, Yachaliyas Begeula Asida, so too could be in the future redemption. V'chein Mavua B'Madrashim, and so what it seems to be saying in the Medrash, Ma Goyel Rishon Nigla V'Nichse, just like the first Redeemer was revealed and then he was concealed again. Kach Goyel Achron, so too the latter Redeemer will be revealed and then he will be concealed. Right? That's the idea that he says very explicitly over here, as a matter of probability, that's the way it's going to be. So it shouldn't shock us. Now, that really does put us in a big mess, here's a question. How can that be that we are 30 years later, the Rebbe already pointed out to us the Chiddush of yesterday was that it wasn't just a Besuris HaGeula that is generally something happening in the world. The Rebbe was saying that it was Niskayim, it was already fulfilled, the idea, Shana Shemelech HaMashiach Niglo, the year that Melech HaMashiach is revealed. And the Rebbe told us at the end of the year that happened already. The Rebbe also told us that we're ready, the second part of the Medrash, that Melech HaMashiach, B'shasha Melech HaMashiach Ba, that he's Oimed Al Gag Beis HaMikdash, that he's standing on the roof in the Mikdash Beis HaMikdash, and he gave the Besuris HaGeula, that already happened already. And the Rebbe and not only gave us vague ideas, but he dropped some serious clues of who he's referring to. And continued to make it stronger and stronger, until in the last Sichos he almost made it impossible for a person, like you asked the question, did the Lubavitcher Rebbe ever say that he's Mashiach? Well, I don't like the clip and pasting type of style, where you just grab little lines, but when you learn through the Nun Aleph and the Nun Beis Sichos, and you go all the way back to Basi Lagani first, the first Maimer the Rebbe said, he already said it then, but then when you read the last Nun Aleph and Nun Beis Sichos, it's very, 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 very clear by him calling 770 Beis Mashiach, and that Menachem Shemoy and so on and so forth non-stop, and saying that Mashiach is 3 generations, someone by the name of Menachem who's related to someone who came before him by the name of Yosef Yitzchak, who's related to someone before him who's Doiv Ber. I mean, do your math. There's very, very little option happening in what the Rebbe was telling us. And I'm not even talking about things that the Rebbe said to people privately, and the acceptance of all the Kabbalah Samalchus things, and the encouragement, and the Rebbe saying that just like the women made Kabbalah Samalchus in Crown Heights, they should do it, so they should follow suit in, I think, in Eretz Yisrael, they should be Bekesha with the woman over. I mean, there's a lot, it's endless. So, the problem, however, is, where is Mashiach? Where is the Geula? Where is the redemption? And we don't have to talk about the horrors of Golus that are still happening. And we're as we see the spike of anti-Semitism and all these horrible stuff that are happening. So what's going on? It feels like we are, for the last 30 years, like a car that's trying to get out of in the snow, and you're hitting the gas, but the wheel just going, and you're not going anywhere. We feel that way. We feel very much we're not moving, we're staying stuck in this place, and we're confused. So perhaps but it has to be that it can't be such a rocket science. It can't be that it's beyond us. It has to be that we have to be able to figure it out. Now, I'm not saying that we haven't advanced, and we did advance, and you see Mashiach advancing in the world, as we've discussed in the earlier classes. That's a sign that we are advancing, and we are accomplishing, but it's a little too slow. It's a little too slow. So something has to happen. And guess what? Lubavitch is responsible. That means that we need to do it. It's the Rebbe's boys that have, the boys and girls, if we can say, that were given the job. So we need to do it, and we have no other option, and it's not coming any other way. Finished. It has to be us, and we're going to do it, and we have to do it. So let's just get it done. Easier done than said. So let's just do it. So what is it that the Rebbe asked of us? So what is it? And without chachmas anymore, let's just focus in, and this is the best community. I mean, a whole community coming here and learning for an entire week and being so inspired. I haven't seen this anywhere. This is amazing. So this is definitely a makom muchshar. I mentioned today in the morning I watched a film by Mottel Feiglin about the origins of Chabad in Australia, and it blew my mind. But you can see, when you plant seeds so deep, what will grow? This is amazing. So Australia, being you're the first in terms of every mitzvah, so in Bias HaMashiach, this is the first place. And Baruch Hashem is a very welcoming Mashiach atmosphere. So this is, I think, the seeds have been planted, ready for final action. So what are we talking about? So the question is, what kind of participation do we have regarding the next stage? We have Mashiach already, but Mashiach needs to be able to bring the Geula, which means that Mashiach's energy needs to be actualized and revealed in the world and in everything, which are all the steps that Mashiach has to do. bringing the Jewish people back to Eretz Yisrael. Shleimus Haaretz, Eretz Yisrael should, all the enemies that are there should be, eradicated or dismissed, and Eretz Yisrael and the Beis Hamikdash should be built. All the things that we need for full-fledged Bias HaMashiach. Are we participants in that? Did the Rebbe involve us? Is it our job? Obviously, we all know the answer that yeah. So, let's pay attention to another talk the Rebbe gave, which rocked Lubavitch, which I didn't talk about yesterday. And everybody knows the talk that I'm talking about, the famous Chav Ches Nisan Sicha, that in the end of 1991, during this powerful year, in which I mentioned before, the Rebbe said that Chodesh Nisan was the time in Be'ikr where we finished Kol HaKitzim Kipshutoi Mamish. The Rebbe used that word, Kol HaKitzim Kipshutoi Mamish, and the Rebbe gave a date. The end of Chodesh Nisan. You don't find that anywhere. The Rebbe should point to a date that passed already and indicate and say that that is a crucial moment in Bias HaMashiach. It's very unique. So you find the Rebbe talking to Chassidim, then the Rebbe turned around the night of Chav Ches Nisan, gave a Sicha, and I'm not going to go through the Sicha, just the Nekuda. The Rebbe started off speaking about what a Yom Zakai it is. It's Tafshin Nun Aleph, Arenu Neflois. We've been building up till now. This is the month when Mashiach should have come, could have come, and needed to happen. And the Rebbe then asked the question to the Chassidim, how can it be that sie kleiben sich zusammen, 10 Yidden, there are 10 Jews over here, and mit student nicht that we don't break the heavens to bring Mashiach. And the Rebbe says, at such a time, something like, we should do this, or we should have done it. And the Rebbe says, and what can I do? What more can I do to get that you should, basically the Rebbe is saying that we're not taking it seriously. That we're not, it doesn't bother us, the Golus doesn't bother us enough. Therefore, the Rebbe says, was noch, and after everything that I did, and it's still not, you guys are out to lunch. I don't have participation. Chabes nicht. So the Rebbe says at that time, was noch, and after everything, and the Rebbe says these words, it's not in the Sicha, but you listen to the Rebbe says that after everything that I did is lehevel olarik. So what does the Rebbe mean? Lehevel olarik. Everything Lubavitch did is nothing? No, the Rebbe is talking about one particular thing. That we should care about Mashiach, and it should bother us. And we should cry out with an emes. All he's been doing in that is not, it's not happening. Because even if we're doing it menasafa l'chutz. We're not being sincere. We're doing it because he tells us to do it, not because it's really bothering us. So the Rebbe says, the einzigste Sach was ich kenta. So the only thing I could do is ibegeben de inyan zu euch. I can give it over to you. Tut aus was ihr kennt. Do everything you are able to do to bring Mashiach down here lamata. The Rebbe gave a formula. It means you're going to be dealing with some pretty intense energies. You have to work with this powerful, wild craziness. But it needs to be done, B'Kelim de Tikkun, with rectified vessels. It needs to be done in an organized, mesuderdig way. And Yiratzin, the Rebbe said that there will be finally 10 people, dann sich einaktion, and a minion, 10 people that will be stubborn and will and see to it that they will whatever the Lashon over there, by Eibishten, the Eibishten will bring that Mashiach has to come. And the Rebbe said, and in the end he said, Yiratzin, there should be 2 or 3 of you, sheyataksu etza, that will come up with some kind, should sit together and break your heads, via zoim zoltan, and how we should do it, and make it happen. And the Rebbe said, Yiratzin, that we should do it mitach simcha v'tov levav, which was like just that ending, that it should be done mitach simcha v'tov levav. In other words, the Rebbe says, I gave you right now the biggest heartbreak you will ever have. The Rebbe obviously is speaking from a place of enormous frustration and pain. You can feel and sense the heartbrokenness of the Rebbe like I don't think any other time. But yet he says, whatever it is that we need to do, we should do b'tech simcha. Fine. After that, of course, this Chassidim were there with their mouths open. Is to hear these words from the Rebbe that everything was done lehevel olarik, and he's giving it over. So Lubavitch obviously went into a complete shock, and responses were very, very different. One response to this shocking Sikha, is basically, Chassidim realized something very deep happened over here. And one response was, the Rebbe basically resigned. The Rebbe resigned. He didn't resign as a Rebbe, but he resigned at what the Rebbe has taken from him, upon himself from the very beginning. Basi legani achoisi kav, and this Indian that he was going to see it through and it was going to happen. And we take the blame, our fault. We didn't. Can you imagine to feel such a slap that the Rebbe says, "I'm sorry, guys, it's over. We should have done it this Nisan. It didn't happen. Finished." And he's giving it over to us. If you think that way, so what kind of feeling do you have? So obviously, he couldn't do it. We're going to do it. So therefore, what? All right. So Lubavitch has to go back doing the stuff that Lubavitch has been doing really well, spreading Yiddishkeit, community building, and stuff like that. Project of Mashiach will put on hold. It's not doing us that much good. It's not hurting our image. It's not. We're a little bit, right? We received as Meshagayim. So you know what? Let Lubavitch continue doing great things, and Mashiach will come. Mashiach will come. The Rebbe himself said that kind of he failed at this Indian. Fine, that was one approach, and I'm not going to say who exactly, what, where, and when, but that was a mahalach, a way people perceived it. Other people, on a complete other extreme, felt that the way to respond to the Rebbe is what the Rebbe wants is something that he himself can't do. The Rebbe, in other words, he told us, he dropped hints about Bias HaMashiach, who he is and what he is. The Rebbe wants a complete coronation coming from the Chassidim, that we shouldn't be afraid anymore, but we should go out with the full shturim of Lubavitch and tell the entire world who Mashiach Tzidkenu is, that Mashiach came, we should accept him as a king, and so on and so forth. And if we can blast the entire world and basically let everybody know who Mashiach is, that will bring the Geulah. And it started, a campaign started. Was that correct or incorrect? I obviously lean more towards that than to the idea that the Rebbe resigned and that we have to kind of undo Basi Legani, and that the whole process of Geula and Chabad and Mashiach is kind of beginning with the Rebbe Rashab. That all of that definitely I couldn't accept. This, I mean, there was a lot of encouragement of the Rebbe when they gave him the Psak Din and so on and so forth. And we can hypothesize or think about maybe perhaps if all of Lubavitch would have rallied behind at that moment and really came back, and there wouldn't have been the split, and there wouldn't have been the fear, and there wouldn't have been the machlokes and all this stuff, maybe it would have been successful. I don't know. Okay? But what perhaps I think, if we do take a deeper look at the sikha of what the Rebbe said then, and then the sikhas that came afterwards, because the Rebbe came back the next Shabbos, or that Shabbos, and then after that Shabbos after Shabbos, and after that the Rebbe blessed us with about 1 year of sikhas, from Nisan of Nunar to Adar. So you have a whole year when the Rebbe is talking to us, and the idea that the Rebbe resigned from the project is refutable completely from the sikhas that came afterwards. Because the Rebbe continued referring to that this is Shana Shemelach HaMashiach Nigla Boi. The Rebbe continued referring to that Mashiach is already in the world and that he's fully operating in the world. The Rebbe kept on saying all those hints that we were talking about before. So it couldn't be that the Rebbe said, no, it's over. So obviously, we need to take a look at these sikhs and see what the Rebbe has been saying, and perhaps figure it out. And I know there are much smarter people than me that have been working on this and thinking about this. But till I found this book that I mentioned to you earlier in Yonah Shel Mashiach, I myself didn't have the vaguest clue of what it's probably all about. When I read that sefer, at least he created some kind of an understanding that made sense. And I saw that we're dealing with a person who actually sat and studied and ripped through those sikhs, Maimarim, delved into it and to every nuance and thought about it and has given a masterful piece and an explanation on all of that. And as part of it, I'm giving credit to Reb Berel of Wolf. You should learn the Sefer, as I mentioned. And part of it, some of that is related to some thoughts I was thinking about. And this is, again, my understanding of what is needed and what is happening and what we can probably, or not probably, but which we need to do now. And the idea is as follows. If you take a look at the Sikha, you see there's two parts to it. The Rebbe at the beginning was bothered or crying out that, see, what really is going on is, you have Mashiach Tzidkenu, who has a job to redeem the Jewish people, and his frustration is that he cannot do what he needs to do, because he needs our participation. And we're not giving him that participation. Could you imagine? The Rebbe spoke about so many times how Mashiach sits amongst in the Golos, and he is soivel chaloim, and he takes off one bandage and he puts on the other one. The Rebbe is bandaging the entire Jewish people. He's dealing with the wounds and the pain and the suffering, and he suffers like no other person in the world. And all he wants is the Geula, and he needs our involvement, Chevra. And what did he ask for? So from Tafshin Mem Beis and onward, around that time, the Rebbe introduced a new idea that we need to, first it was we need to conquer the world and so on and so forth. But then the Rebbe introduced a new idea that we need to cry out Ad Mosai. It has to bother us. I guess a Rebbe can sense how close we are, can feel that we're so close that a good oomph, a good push from below can actually actualize the Geula. So the Rebbe called for our, and the Rebbe used the children and stormed the heavens with, we want Mashiach now, and so on and so forth. So the Rebbe is expecting that when we're so close, and we're seeing already all the miracles, the whole world is transforming, everything is so real, the Eibishter is so tangible, godliness is so real, we're so close, we should be so excited that of course we're going to say, hey, how can it be? We should be waiting every day of Nisan. It didn't happen the first day Pesach. It didn't happen Yud Aleph Nisan. How couldn't it happen Yud Aleph Nisan? For sure it's going to happen Yud Gimel Nisan. If not Yud Aleph, for sure it's going to be by the Seder. The Rebbe didn't feel that. We feel that way. So and we're crying out. After, however, when he says it's not working, the Rebbe says, "Was noch kann ich tun?" What else can I do? He doesn't say I'm resigning. He says, "What else can I do? I'm going to do something. I'm going to do something now that's going to be a game changer. I'm turning everything around. What am I doing? Ich geb iber de inyan zu euch. I'm giving over the inyan of bringing Mashiach to you." What does that mean? So how are we going to bring Mashiach? Oh, I'm giving it to you, so now you should scream even louder. Ad Masai. No, that's not what he's asking for. After he says, I'm giving it over to you, he's not saying, now I hope you're going to scream Ad Masai. No, screaming Ad Masai would only work if it's his responsibility to bring Geula, and we are behind him by evoking, davening, crying out to the Eibishter, we'll see in a minute why, to empower Mashiach to bring the Geula. Now the Rebbe is saying, if I'm not going to get that help, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to put you in charge of bringing Mashiach. Yeah? In other words, the Geula, Mashiach is here already, but the Geula to be activated in the world, that's your responsibility. So hold it. That doesn't make any sense. If you have a group of people, a classroom with children, and you have certain expectations, and they're not meeting their expectations, so what are you going to do? You're going to up the expectations? Make it even greater than ever before? You make it less. You diminish it. It's too hard. This is too hard. Let's suffice with something less than that. Here the Rebbe seems to increase our involvement 1,000,000-fold. We're no more just his fans behind him, clapping him on, cheering him on, but we have to bring Mashiach ourselves. So how does that work? So if you see, the Rebbe many times in Chinuch, the Rebbe gives advice in Chinuch many times when someone writes in to the Rebbe that they're having a hard time with their class and so on and so forth, or with a particular boy or a particular child, parent. The Rebbe says that, you know what you should do, in many cases the Rebbe gives that advice, is that if the kid is not cooperating, this kid is disturbing in class and is not doing their work, their assignments, and so on and so forth, the Rebbe says, make them the monitor. Give them responsibility. Put them in charge. That very kid is so restless and so this, but he becomes in charge of making sure that others do their work. And once it becomes their responsibility, it will become theirs. They'll own it. And when they own it, then you'll see they're going to get much more involved and it's going to be there. In a sense, the Rebbe is saying, So far, it's my business to bring Mashiach. You all know that it was my business to bring Mashiach. But as we're going to see in a moment, I do need your participation. You're not giving me that participation like this child that is daydreaming in class and not really involved in the lesson. Therefore, I'm giving you responsibility that you're in charge to bring Mashiach. So then, that itself is going to invoke in you koiches and powers to be able to do it. Okay. But let's first go a little deeper and understand, why does the Rebbe need our involvement to begin with? What does he need? So if you think about it, we go back to Basi Lagani, when the Rebbe said the Maimer, and the Rebbe said that we're holding now this after 6 generations, I'm the 7th generation, and my job is to bring the Shekhinah down into this world, to bring the Eibishter finally down into this world. So you can ask the question, the Chabad Rebbeim have many secrets that they never told us. We understand that. They have very much secrets that they didn't share. You would think something like this, that to bring Mashiach, and that's the last generation, and that the avoid is that he has to be Mashiach and bring Mashiach and to complete the redemption of the world. Why does he spill the beans on the first Maimer? Why does he? You would think something like this. There's been a secret throughout the generations. Why would he share it with us? And the idea is that it's core essential to the whole concept of Mashiach, that Mashiach has to come from the below. Mashiach must come from the world. Especially since the way Mashiach was going to materialize, that it was going to come after the Baal Shem Tov, and particularly it's going to come through the Chabad channel. It's going to come through the Alter Rebbe, and it's going to come through the 7th generation of the Alter Rebbe, which anybody that learned a little Chassidus can understand, that means that the whole Bias HaMashiach is something that has to be a process that has to permeate and involve a certain purification and rectification from below, not godliness, not godly power, blowing away the darkness from above. It has to be an organic experience. It has to be from within the world. Let's go back to something I mentioned yesterday when I spoke about the image that the fairy tale Mashiach and the fairy tale coming of Mashiach that Jews have always dreamt about. And I'm calling it fairy tale because it's such fantasy in the sense that it allows the mind to enjoy the fantasy. And right. So how did we always see Mashiach coming? I mentioned yesterday the story with the Yid in my grandfather's city who was blowing the shofar in the middle of the night. Eliyahu Hanavi appears out of nowhere, tells Yidden Mashiach is coming. 3 days later, from cloud 9, Mashiach comes down like from the sky, and suddenly all the Yidden and the whole world sees his light, and his powerful radiance. He snaps his fingers and he picks the whole world. This is, if those who know the Yiddish songs, the Yontif Erlich songs, that talk about Bias HaMashiach, that's the way most Jews see Bias HaMashiach. That's the way Chassidish Yidden over here in the community, in the Yadas community here, that's what people have. Only Lubavitch has a whole different Mahalach and Bias HaMashiach. Maybe the Israeli Mizrahi Zionistic movement also. But generally, from a Yidden, I've always seen Mashiach as a divine intervention that's going to happen suddenly in the world, that's going to blast away all the darkness, and going to reveal godliness in this world. Yet, I mentioned last time, and that's going to come through Eliyahu Hanavi. And I mentioned, however, that the Medrash seems to be saying that it's possible that Mashiach himself is going to be Mevasar the Geula. Not Eliyahu Hanavi. Mashiach himself is going to be Mevasar the Geula. So why not Eliyahu Hanavi? Why is it going to come through Mashiach? So the Rebbe already explains in the Sichos that they're obviously based on the idea that there's 2 ways for Mashiach to come. One is Be'ita, when Mashiach comes in the right time, or Achishena, which means Mashiach comes in a way that it's much earlier. He's rushed, he comes. And the Rebbe explains, the Achishena Digaway means more from above. It's a miraculous redemption. Mashiach does miracles. The whole world is transformed because of the powerful godly light that Mashiach unleashes in the world, that blows, that does away with all the darkness. And then there is a process of Mashiach. And it happens from below. Now, one thing is for sure. The idea that Mashiach must come from below is actually core essential to this Geula. It has to be from below. That's why the Jewish people always knew that the last Galus is going to be the longest Galus. There was no question about it. The reason it's going to be a long exile, because every process that has to go from below, which means organic, not superimposed, takes a long time. If I have a child who I'm doing homework with, and they have a certain problem, I can sit down with them, first of all, give them the answer. Obviously, that's totally not the child. I can actually just do it with them, and then it will take 5 minutes. Or I can let them do it on their own, and then it will take them 2 hours. It'll involve frustration and upsetness. It'll take 2 hours. Or I can have them do it, but I'll drop them a little assistance, a little clues here and there, and then I'll speed it up from 2 hours to an hour. You see, these are the different ways it can happen. In order for this geula to be a permanent geula, and therefore, what is the medrash, that very medrash that I quoted to you yesterday, which says that which gets Mashiach himself as being the mevaser of the geula, of the one who's telling the Jewish people about the redemption. That very same medrash quotes the idea that this geula is not like all the other geulas. All the other geulas, they were redemptions, but after the redemption it got dark again. But this geula is going to be a permanent redemption. For something to be permanent, let's go back to the child. If I did the math problem with them, right, I might have done it with them, but kid didn't learn how to do math. It's not his. He didn't own it. In order for him to own it, he or her to own it, they have to go through the process of absorbing it, learning it from below, and as they do it, they'll get the skill, they'll develop math skills, and they'll know how to do their work. So it'll last. They'll have it with them forever. If I'm doing it for them, I gave them the answer, or even I showed them how to do it, but it's not theirs. In order for this geula to be lasting, it can't be like Moshe Rabbeinu superimposing holiness, superimposing God on the world. It had to be a process. However, what's the idea of Achishena? Achishena means that if the Jewish people learn Torah and mitzvahs, learn Torah and do mitzvahs, through our Torah and through our mitzvahs, we bring a purification in the world. If we merit, and we're very, very involved, first of all, we can do the process of purifying the world faster. Secondly, we always know in Chassidut a very simple idea. There is always a serusa de latata, a serusa de liela. When we work from below, we get the Eibishter involved. So therefore, Hashem boosts our activities. So if we do the zichuch, we do our purification, but we also do tshuva, and so on and so forth, and we merit, we're going to get the Eibishter to help us out in that zichuch, like the child who gets the parent to help them do the homework, but it comes with the parent's assistance, so it can be at much, much faster speed. And that's why we could have had the Giyul at an earlier time. I think, and this was a thought that occurred to me today, I think that that's the reason why it says that the Eibishter will send Eliyahu Hanavi. What's the idea of sending Dafke Eliyahu? Why Eliyahu is coming to me Mavasher the Geula? What's Eliyahu? Chassidus explains that the unique thing about Eliyahu is that Eliyahu he went up with his body to heaven. Unlike Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was much greater than Eliyahu Hanavi, yet Moshe Rabbeinu's body stayed here on earth. Eliyahu Hanavi went up with his body ascended to heaven. So Chassidus explains, because Eliyahu is related to the name 52 that we spoke about the other day, Shem Ban, the name 52 is related to the purification of earth itself. Eliyahu was greater than Moshe Rabbeinu in the fact that he had more refinement in his physical body. Moshe Rabbeinu's body was holy, but because of godly light from above. Eliyahu Hanavi worked it out from below. Sending Eliyahu Hanavi means that the Eibishter sends us in assistance in this zichuch. So we can do the zichuch to a certain degree, a purification to a certain degree. Eliyahu Hanavi comes, speeds up that zichuch, makes it happen much faster, and therefore he introduces a Mashiach that's totally miraculous, because the Mashiach's coming is involving much more a divine interaction. But if Mashiach is going to come, not so much, because it's not loy zachu. And what does the loy zachu over here mean? It means that it's taking us longer. And the reason it's taking us longer, really, from the ultimate perspective, is if the child is left to work it on their own without assistance, ultimately they're going to become more refined and more internalize it, because they have to work and work and work. I'm not talking without any assistance, but without much assistance. So then the Geula is going to come. That's why when When the Rebbe spoke of Mashiach, the Rebbe focused very much on the Rambam, on a Mashiach that does not involve miracles, a Mashiach that evolves in the world through a certain natural process. Suddenly the Jewish people see someone who's worthy to be a king. They gather around him. He starts fighting wars. There is a teva diga mahalach, and the Rebbe says very much based on the Rambam, you don't need miracles. And how much did the Rebbe speak about that? It's a process. In other words, if Mashiach is going to come through that process, if Mashiach is going to come through the process from below, then what? Then you don't need Eliyahu Hanavi to come. Then it's Mashiach himself. If he's doing the work with the Jewish people, if he's already amongst them, he doesn't suddenly appear from the sky, but he is involved in the process, and that's the whole idea of Chabad, and that's the whole idea of taking, what's Mashiach? Mashiach is the revelation of the unity of God. That's what the Baal Shem Tov revealed it, and then it took 7 generations. If Mashiach would come, Achishena, the Mashiach can't come without the Baal Shem Tov. Mashiach can't come without Achdus Hashem. But you know what would happen? There would be, even though Jews would still be back with their understanding, the way I understand it, we would have a crash course of 7 generations of Chassidus, or 9 generations of Chassidus, to speed up our perception and understanding of Achdus Hashem. But the Seif Kol Seif, we didn't get that crash course. It took 7, 8, 9 generations, which means it's a thorough process from below. That's why Mashiach himself is working from within the world. That's why when we point out all the changes that have been talking about the last week that are happening in the world now, are all without divine intervention through some magical being. It seems to be kind of the world on its own. The changes that are happening, governments are changing, the Trumps of the world, the Boris Johnsons of the world, the evangelicals of the world, things in the world that are becoming more synchronized with the Eibishter, sort of through an organic process that we see as Mashiachtig, but yet is part of the world. If this is the case, so the Rebbe, after all the work, that's why he revealed to us, it's all together, because it's not me doing it, it's us doing it. Us as a team, us as being from below, in revealing the godliness in the world. Fine. As we get closer, and we're so close, the Rebbe says, Chevra, now we need to get the Eibishter engaged strongly. How will you do that? You'll call Ad Mosai, you'll cry out, we'll get that assistance and that empowerment to meet our efforts from below, and together, metadurich brechen. But we failed to give, and that's why before the Tchavches Nisan Sicha, if we would have done that the way we should have done it, then the Rebbe can bring Mashiach, which means the Giluyim of Mashiach is coming from him, empowered from a divine force from above, but again, based on all the work from below, but yet, through more a projective power of Mashiach Tzidkenu, where we are giving him the assistance because we're intensifying the Eibishter's empowerment to Melech HaMashiach to be able to blast through and do the miracles for the Geula. On that point, we failed. So what happens now, the Rebbe says? So now that Chodesh Nisan passed, so now what are we going to do? Well, we're going to do that Mashiach is going to be more of a process that's going to be even more involving the Tachtoin, involving the world, involving all of us together. Each and every one of us as Chassidim, not as Rebbe, but as Chassidim, has been given the task that we are responsible to bring Mashiach. What does that mean that you're responsible to bring Mashiach? How can you be responsible? Redeeming the world, how can me, little nobody, redeem the world? Mashiach is the ultimate, is the highest power. How can we do that? When we understood the Rebbe will do it, but we? The answer is, the Rebbe keeps on saying it in the Sichos after Chavches Nisan. The Rebbe says in the Sichos then, that every single Jew has a spark of Mashiach inside of him. You have a Nitzutz Mashiach inside of you. Until Chavches Nisan, no one can actually tap and connect to that level of depth of soul. That's the part of your neshama. That's not just your yechidah. It's not just your part of your soul where you're unified with God. That the Baal Shem Tov already gave us access to. The Alter Rebbe already gave us access in Perek Yud Ches and Perek Yud Tes and Tanya. The Rebbe said, I'm taking it to a whole deeper level. There is a Nitzutz Mashiach, and the Rebbe explains what means Nitzutz Mashiach. Nitzutz Mashiach is where you and the Eibishter are one. Mashiach is one with the Eibishter himself. It's the deepest, it's the point where Yidden and the Eibishter are absolutely one. Not even you're willing to die for the Eibishter. That's Yechida. That's you're somebody, you're attached, you're so the Eibishter's emes is so overwhelming and so true and you're a recipient of his truth, you can't deny him at all costs. But it's not you and him are not perfectly one. But the deepest point is the essence of the Yid's neshama, that's a nitzutz of the Eibishter, that's one with him. And over there, let's really understand this. What does it really mean? What's Mashiach? Ultimately, what's Mashiach? Ultimately, Mashiach is the Eibishter's dream. This is God's dream. It's what the Eibishter wants. Hashem wants to have a home in this world. We are all helping him out to get to have that home in this world. But it's not our home, it's his home. So even when we're working towards it, how are we working towards it? It's his business. He wants to have a home in this world. We are either freelancers, or we're hired, or we're even more, or we're very dedicated employees, but it's still his house, not our house. Understand? Here the Rebbe is saying a whole different story. I'm giving you the responsibility to bring Mashiach means I am making you Mashiach. The Rebbe says, "Was noch ken ich tun? Koyach Nisan." Nisan is Geula. The power of the Geula. That's why it's on that day. The Rebbe says, "I'm giving you the power to be Mashiach." That means that I'm opening up in your soul, in your being, your deepest, innermost essence, where you cannot tolerate darkness, where you cannot tolerate a concealment on the Eibishter. When there's something in the world that's not aligned with the Eibishter, it bothers you to no end. Who in the world did we see didn't have a heart of his own? His heart is the Eibishter's heart. The Rebbe is the one person in all of history that there was never, that all day long there wasn't a moment, the man did not stop and cease for a second to be driven by a drive that's not his. It is him, because he and it are one. It's almost like the Eibishter, like the Rebbe is plugged into the Eibishter's heart. The burning desire of the Eibishter, I want to have a home in this world, is channeled, is almost like laser beamed into the heart of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and therefore nothing you can do can satisfy him. Nothing. Every moment, no matter what you did, he wants more, because it's an infinite, beyond, it's a boundless desire. And the Rebbe invited us into that experience. Where is your Nitzutz Mashiach? You can also live that way. And therefore, what does the Rebbe say in the following sichos? The Rebbe gives actually four, over those months, the Rebbe says, I mean everybody, the famous dollars when the lady came, said, the Rebbe, we were counting on you. Remember that famous video? The Rebbe, we were counting on you. The Rebbe says, if I'm a Rebbe, then I said what I said. I need you, and you, and you. And I think the Rebbe even pointed to a little baby, and you. It's everybody. Men, women, everybody has to be involved. But the Rebbe had to give us tools. The Rebbe had to give us tools. So what does the Rebbe instruct us in the sichos after that? The Rebbe gives us very clear guidance. He points, and you see there's basically 4 sections in the sichos following. What are those 4 sections? Section number 1 was the first few months. The Rebbe was talking about the idea that we have to be kol yemei chayecha lahavi liyameisa Mashiach. The Rebbe says, "Jetzt as kimidubar ba'achroina," like has been spoken recently, as yet every single yid is achroi. It's a lashon, and I think a parsha Shmini is achroi. It has personal responsibility to bring your geula. That means it's your project. It's not. It's like, we'll have the difference. You can be working for someone, mamish, and be the best employee. But if the bank is whatever, if the bank has to be covered, and for whatever it is, it's already 9 o'clock. You worked and worked 9 o'clock at night. At a certain point, you're leaving. But the guy who this is his business, he's not gonna. He can't say it's good, it's okay. It's like it's a limitless thing because it's yours. So what did the Rebbe say? So the first few months, the Rebbe spoke about that idea, that Lahavi Limaisa Mashiach, all of our life is about one thing, to bring Mashiach. That was the message. The next few months, now again, each of these need really a lot of talk, but meaning a lot to discuss. I'm just going very briefly. The second few months, in the summer months, the Rebbe introduced a new idea. Not only that we have to be ambitious and driven with a drive to bring Mashiach, but more than that, we have to start living in Mashiach's time. Lichyois in Mashiach. That was a new idea. That we start living in Mashiach's world. That means we realize not that we're driven to make something happen that's not here yet. The Rebbe says, Kama v'kame in Yonei HaGeula. Many in Yonim of Geula haben sich schon angeheuben, started already. So we have to start living in that as if Mashiach is here. Not just as if, because he really is here. So start living. And the Rebbe started pointing out how you live in Mashiach. How are Jews going to love each other after Mashiach comes? A different level of Avas Yisrael, a different commitment to Torah, a different type of a commitment to mitzvahs, and so on and so forth. The Rebbe gave a few examples how you live with Mashiach. Obviously, he wanted us to figure out the rest, how to live in Mashiach. That's the second set, the next few months. The third period of time, the Rebbe started speaking about the idea that since is the nitzutz of Mashiach in every person, but there is also a literal Mashiach Tzidkenu, who is the center, who is the nucleus. From him come all these sparks. The Mashiach in every person. So the Rebbe then said, they started, I think, in Parshas Noach, where the Rebbe started talking about the idea that Uvikshu es Elokeim. The Rebbe said, Mashiach isn't here yet. You know, what do maybe we have to do like by Kiddush Levana. Kiddush Levana, the Rebbe spoke a lot about Kiddush Levana. What's the idea of Kiddush Levana? Kiddush Levana is that you're going out to greet the moon, which compares to David HaMelech. It's the idea of a Vikshu es Elokeim as David Malcolm. You're seeking David HaMelech. The idea being, as it's explained, that Yidden are going to come to David HaMelech, Yidden are going to come to Melech HaMashiach, and they're going to ask Melech HaMashiach to be king over them. So the Rebbe over here clearly is actually inspiring, by the way, the Yechi, whole movement of people crowning the Rebbe as a Melech, and the relationship of a Kabbalah Samalchus of people accepting Melech HaMashiach. He spoke about that for a few months, including the Kinnes HaShluchim, where the Rebbe spoke that everybody's responsible to go home and teach all their communities, because all the work of purifying the world has been done already, and the only thing left is that we have to be Makabel Pnei Mashiach Tzidkenu. And by the way, those who try to drei a cup, that in that sikha it says, you have to go out and speak about Mashiach. People should be ready for Mashiach. In general, people should know about Mashiach. The Rebbe very clearly learned, one can just be dishonest. Learn through the Sikha. You see clearly the Rebbe spends, before he says the Poyel Mamish, what the Shluchim have to do, he goes off in a whole long thing here. Do other than every generation there is someone who is ready to be Mashiach, and so and so. And being that we finished all the work already, and we have already what the Frierdiker Rebbe said, who is Hashliach HaYochid B'Dareinu, I quoted it yesterday. Three things. And then he says, HaMashiach HaYochid and he needs to go do his shlichus to redeem the Jewish people, and therefore we need to have Kabbalah's Pnei Mashiach. That's what the Rebbe says. Then the Rebbe says all shluchim should go home to their places and prepare the people. Now what should they do? He didn't say bumper stickers, he didn't say flags, he didn't say that. I'm not negating but that's not what he said. He says they have to teach their communities. They have to teach their communities about the Mashiach so that the people will be ready for Kabbalah's Pnei Mashiach. Now, Kabbalah's Pnei Mashiach means something specific. Doesn't mean Welterein. It means recognizing Mashiach Tzidkenu. I ask you a question for those who think it's not important that we know who Mashiach is. Are you going to tell me that after Moshe Rabbeinu came to Mitzrayim and told the Jewish people, Pakot Pakadati, it's not important who it is? What, are we out of our minds? How can we think something like that? What's not important? It's important. What do you mean it's not important? Shteitno Mashiach Tzidkenu revealed himself already, and we keep it the best kept secret. Now, does that mean that you run and you throw it in people's faces? It's insane as well. So you think, okay, good, you know what? I go and I slap someone's head with a big Yechiyamak and fine. But you know what? That's not Pnimius. It's not Zichuch Lamata. Kabbalah Samalchus means that people have to organically accept it. The same fellow that I put him in Yechi Yarmulke, next week someone's going to schlep him to Uman, and the Yechi Yarmulke is going to become a Nana Nachman Yarmulke. And from the Nana Nachman Yarmulke, he's going to end up in Bnei Brak, and someone is going to show him that the Lubavitches and the Breslovers are wacky, and I'm going to turn you into a ganze Yachke Bedam, I'm going to make you into a big Talmud Chacham. We're going to make you somebody. Suddenly, before you know it, this guy is heading about Tshuva Yeshiva, and he talks about Lubavitch, that Lubavitch are a bunch of wackies. This very same guy who had the Yechi Yarmulke. Because there's nothing Pnimius. You didn't change him. You didn't transform him. So you need to transform. But also, it's not, people think, okay, so it's going to damage the whole world if we say this. It's not true. All the people need is really a crash course. You need to learn with a Yid. 2 Maimarim, 2 Prakim Tanya, 2 Maimarim, 3 Sichas of the Rebbe, and you have him. Because it's mind-blowing. It's truth. It's a whole different perspective on life, the whole reality, and it's organic truth. It's like when you learn it, it like resonates. It's not another pirush. This one says some pilpul, the other pilpul, they're all emes. This is undercovering essential truths. And when a person learns them, obviously you have to select the right sichas. Just a few Rashi sichas won't do it, but the ones that are fundamental, and you explain it, whether he's a Vishnitz, a Chassid, a Belz, a Chassid, a Litvish, a Chassid, a Mizrahi, doesn't make a difference who he is. When you start seeing this Elokus and this emes, you realize it's emes, it's true, and he's himself going to realize there's no other possibility. Who's Mashiach? Who refined the entire world? Who's busy with the world? Who's elevating the world? Whose light is shining around the whole world? And look at my light that's shining. Of course. So you have to understand, it's a panemius to Ge'inyan. That's what the Rebbe says. Go home, teach your communities about Mashiach, and let them identify who Mashiach is. This. And then the last few months, the Rebbe spoke about opening your eyes and seeing Mashiach is already here, everything is finished, Mashiach is at the table, and Shai Rabbein and Leviyasin and all that. So 4 general ideas. In a sense, you can say that these 4 are corresponding to 4 worlds. Every Hamshach is through 4, but there's one deeper emes in all of this. For every single one of these to work, it can't work if you're on the outside and you're trying to live this way, just pretending. Obviously, the whole idea over here is that there is one nekuda. Reveal your nitzutz HaMashiach that's in you. When you reveal, when the Mashiach inside of you is revealed, then you can't bear another moment that Mashiach is not here. The first idea. You're busy with Mashiach all day long because you're in touch with the Mashiach spark inside of you. Your core that needs Geula, that breathes Geula, that's intolerant of Gullus. Then you also sense Mashiach. So you live Mashiach because that nitzutz inside of you is in Mashiach's, is Mashiach, and it taps Mashiach everywhere. That nitzitz inside of you needs to connect needs to be makabel upon himself, the malchus of the super Mashiach. The small Mashiach, the nitzutz, is where that connection happens to the great Mashiach. And that's where you make that Bluetooth connection, the Kabbalas HaMalchus of Chassid Rebbe. So the idea of Kabbalas Pnei Mashiach is not an external thing, it's a very deep inyan, but it requires that you be in touch with a deep core of who you are at your core, which is this deep godliness of the soul. And finally, when your nitzutz Mashiach is inside of you, you see Mashiach everywhere. If it's your identity, then everywhere you look and in everything you see, you'll see Mashiach. You'll see Mashiach everywhere. This is the essence. This is the core. But how? The Rebbe gave us basically throughout this entire year, all these hayras that the Rebbe kept on telling us, involving that nitzutz Mashiach that needs to be woken, stimulated, and revealed, there is one idea that the Rebbe gives us a tool. So how do I get to that nitzutz? How do I get it? Tell me, I have to be Mashiach. I have to find that core. How do I do that? The Rebbe gave one answer to that. And you'll see it again. This is the one hayra that repeats itself the entire year. Learning Ginyane Geula and Mashiach. Because when you learn something, Torah is light. So Torah will shine light and it will illuminate. It will illuminate. What illumination? If you're learning Torah that deals with fixing the world, it will give you light and it will show you how to fix the world. It's like a person who's working in a dark cellar. It's dark, so they could be a goldsmith or some other smith or some other carpenter doing work. The work is not being done by the light. The work is being done by the chisel, the other instruments, the drill, the tool. That's what's doing the work. And his hands and his expertise or whatever. But obviously without the light, very little gets done in a cohesive manner. You need light. When the light sees and it illuminates, you see what you're doing. So the same is also when Mashiach needs to come to the world. What do we mean over here? We need to illuminate and reveal how Elokus, the Eibishter, is the essence of everything, which is Mashiach. Elokus is, you need to illuminate and have that essence. Let me add one more thought that will clarify this. So what's the difference of, what are we doing? Did Rebbe ask us to do anything else? Did Rebbe ask for Torah mitzvahs? Increase Torah, whatever we were doing before. But increase Torah mitzvahs coming from your nitzutz HaMashiach, and obviously everything is going to take on a different flavor. Everything's going to take on a whole different energy. So that's what the Rebbe was saying. But what really inherently changed? Before we did Torah and Mitzvahs, and now we're doing Torah and Mitzvahs. What's the difference? The difference is very different. As long as we didn't finish refining the world and elevating all the sparks, there were emes eklippos, there were real blockages that were blocking and were not allowing something to act in a godly way. There was a block. There was something. There was a klippa. There is something there that's distorting. It's not allowing Mashiach to express himself in the world. Now, what? We finished doing all the Torah and mitzvahs. We've already broken through all the klippas. There's nothing blocking anymore. The only thing that needs to happen is the essence of everything has to surface, has to come into kind of consciousness. It has to reveal itself in every person, in every object, in every entity of the world. And like you're seeing happening now, remember I spoke the second day, we spoke about the quantum computer. This is the idea that we're tapping something we're tapping the ayin, before it becomes a yesh. The impossibility, the Rebbe then said about you can be halacha like Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel at the same time. Like the impossible is becoming natural. It's revealing itself. Science is revealing it. Tchias HaMesim is no more an idea that perhaps must come through a crazy miracle. It's almost like science will be, we understand that that's possible. We can clone a limb and regrow it. So that means that everything is becoming organic. Everything is coming from within the world. But the elokus element has to show itself, has to reveal itself. So how do we reveal this essence? So first we have to reveal it in us. Because every single one of us controls a chunk of this world. That's the way it is. There's a chunk of the world controlled. This is not me saying, the Alter Rebbe says it in Perek Lamed Zayin and Tanya. Every single one of us is plugged into a massive part of the universe. And when inside us, our essence, our Mashiach is visible, present, and being actualized in our daily lives, because we're living in that, we're driven by that, we're excited about it, so that will happen around the world. You will start seeing people and objects and entities synchronizing with God's will, like we have been seeing. Obviously, there has been good Mashiach work done, and that's why things are happening. But the more we can inspire that spark, the more Yidden can become Mashiach Yidden, can become like alive from that deep inner place, the faster, the quicker, the stronger this is going to happen. How do we make it happen? We make it happen by learning Torah, but not just learning Torah. Imagine you can learn the Torah from Mashiach Tzidkenu himself, which Mashiach Tzidkenu gave after he revealed himself as Mashiach. So can you imagine that Torah is so potent? That Torah has the quality of the essence revealed, of the nitzutz of Mashiach. Just like, I'll give you an example, just a simple example. Take a look in the world and you see an amazing thing. Every Yid has a neshama. Every Yid has a neshama. And a neshama is a powerful beacon of light. A neshama has a huge power to influence the world. Yet, we find that people who have decided, for whatever reason, whatever, either they were born that way or in an environment like that or connected, whatever it is, those that are connected to the Rebbe, those that are connected to the super soul, the Nasi Ador is the super neshama, those who plug into a more pneumistic dimension of Rebbe, because they willfully study his Torah and connect to him, follow his ways, their neshama is now operating. Sometimes you see on your phone, it gets red and it says battery life 15, it's like draining, like you only have like 10% left. When you plug in to the super neshama, your soul is operating on 90. So you see that chassid automatically, it's not stam, he turns over a city, he turns over a place. It's not just him, he's having a powerful in him or her, of having an influence on people, changing people. It's not just they're doing mitzvahs, their entire community are doing mitzvahs. That's what the Rebbe made. He made all of us, little pishers, he made us into powerhouses to be able to influence, to shine light, to be able to affect. It's not us, it's the empowerment. Our neshama is shining brightly because we're connecting to the super neshama. So, but if we're connecting just to Rebbe, which is obviously, but in Rebbe itself, we connect to the pneumius of the pneumius of the pneumius of the Rebbe. If you can say that the is dam shaha chaya shenefesh teluya boy, the inner core of Rebbe. And what was the inner core of Rebbe from the day one? Du'ulasan shel Yisrael, the redemption of the Jewish people, the nekuda atzmis, that's even higher than Yechida. When we plug into that, then that element becomes super potent inside of us. We become Mashiach, we become on fire with Mashiach, and we influence Mashiach all around us, and it begins to change the world. So it's not such a far thing. It's a simple hayra. Learn about Mashiach, but learn it thoroughly. And not, again, learning about Mashiach means not just clipping clips and saying, finding all the extreme things that Rebbe said and say, oh, no, this is what we say. It means it's okay. We need to know all of that. But we need to know all of that based on a rock-solid foundation of learning it well. That's why I'm saying, for me, it was that sefer in Yonah Shel Mashiach. Another fantastic sefer, if you can't, that's a serious learning, is one called Hatkufa v'Hagiyula. That's a sefer written by Rabbi Meislish from Mexico City. Fantastic. Bekitzer, it just goes through the entire Yiddishkeit. You see how everything leads into Mashiach. That's the point. To get the whole perspective. When you know that, you feel it within yourself. And of course, going along with that is to learn the sichas of Nun Aleph and Nun Beis. Not once, not twice, consistently, again and again and again. This will empower, this will turn on Mashiach, and this will bring out Mashiach inside of us. And here's the most important idea. Do we have a Breda? We have no other Breda. There's nothing else we can do. We have to follow what the Rebbe told us to do. This is what we need to do. And people are asking me, okay, you're saying Mashiach, Mashiach, and what's with all this anti-Semitism? What's the stuff that are happening here? I'm not justifying chas v'shalom anything. But when you're sitting on a plane, and the plane landed already at your destination, and they don't open the door to get off that plane, and you're sitting there for 2 hours, for 5 hours, for 10 hours, for 2 weeks, for 3 months, it's going to start smelling a little, right? And then people, if you have a nice family of children on the plane, you're going to start getting pretty much dirty looks, right? Like people were behaving the rest of the way, but now that you're like, and if you're Jewish, nachtatzi, right? Like, the world doesn't have patience for us kratzing around. They know we're supposed to be out of here, meaning we're supposed to have elevated all of creation. They don't have any more patience, and they don't know what's going on, but they know the Jew is responsible. That's the emes. We are responsible. There's no excuse. We have to get this job done, and we have to take the Rebbe seriously. And we're not talking about craziness. We're talking about craziness, but organic craziness, real craziness. We're talking about this energy that's beyond, that we all have to go on fire, and we can do it. Why can we do it? Because the Rebbe gave it to us. Ich gebe es über zu euch. I'm giving you this koyach. And if we have the koyach, we have to do it. So let's do it. Let's hope that we just do it right now. Ain't tzvedra. Daratan. And we have the Geula. Sure. All we need is achlata. We need achlata to be real chassidim, to get it done, to know that Moshe emes v'Torah emes. There's no... Because even if you feel that people are not mekablim, I think it's very important. Even if you feel that people are not mekablim, people are not ready. But I ask you, when you move into community and you have to teach people about mikveh, or you have to teach people about Shabbos, come on. You know you're not going to teach the person immediately about all the harchakas. You're not going to do that. You're going to try to get the person to go to the mikveh. You're not going to teach the person on Shabbos all the stringencies, but you're going to try to get something. And you shouldn't, you slowly start with small things. But does that mean, as a rabbi, that you're going to pretend that you don't either keep Shabbos like that way, or that you don't either keep... No, are you going to sound like a lunatic? Maybe if I'm becoming a shliach, I should chop off my beard so people will feel, meaning I'll be a shave and I look more like the people, so they'll be more trusting of me. Maybe I should look more very modern, and therefore I should kind of... No, a chassid is a chassid. This is who I am. Now, the guy's going to get scared? No, people, they want you to be true to yourself. This whole Hakan Chainik, the Lubavitchers tried, these are the Meshichists, these are a bunch of crazies. It doesn't work. They all know it's Baba Mises. You know, the what's his name, Dudu Fisher, just recently. He said, Rebbe Mashiach. He says, if you learn a little Chassidus, there's no other option. This is the emes. Everybody knows. So what are we hacking and trying to pretend it's not true? It's emes. Someone asks you, okay, you know, we'll learn. Let's learn Tanya, learn Perek Lamed Vav, Perek Lamed Zayin, learn Basi Lagani, learn 3 other sichos with the guy and finish. He might not become whatever, but he'll understand you, he'll respect you. But not hiding, not pretending it's not true. That's silly. So b'poyel mamish, we can do it. We're going to do it. And we're going to do it now. May the Eibishter bench us all. We'll be able to be makabel Mashiach Tzidkenu now. And I hope that now, after everything, today, please forgive me. I don't want to offend anybody, but I'm going to conclude with Yechi Adonenu, Meirenu, V'Rabbeinu, Melech HaMashiach, Li'olam Va'ed, L'chaim Al Bracha, everyone.